Hello everyone, it's Jane for Student Pages. Hope you're all doing absolutely excellent once again. Today we have another very special guest for you guys. We are here with Katy Manning. How's it going?
I just said to you just now, there's a tiny little rescue cat that is so poorly and so thin, and I'm trying to get hold of the RSPCA or someone because I don't drive, so I haven't got I can't just sort of. And so this poor little cat, and then suddenly the kitchen, I can't wash up in the kitchen because the sink is just pouring water, and I'm moving from one place to another place and then to another place, you know. So the
I
intrepid
mean,
woman, I've done it
hey,
for
it's a
children.
testament. It's a testament to how kind you are for all this going on and still giving me the time of day. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. But as I say, I've been moving for many, many years, countries, homes. I'm one of those people. I'm not a grown up who goes out and buys a house and says, that's it, I'm here for the rest of my life. I couldn't do it. I would go insane.
Hey, no, it's the right way to live. It's the right way to live. So, I mean, Katy, what better way to start off by saying you've been playing Joe Grant in the Whoniverse for over 50 years now. It's a massive role. It's an iconic character. How do you feel about the character? And would you say there's any similarities between yourself and Joe?
Oh, I used to be asked this question very when I first started, right? And back then, the press wanted you to say exactly what, oh, yes, I'm just like Joe. Da, 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 da. No, I'm an actress. I even lifted my voice for Joe. And so Joe now, you've got to look at, I think, well, no, it is. Joe was one of the few companions you saw an incredible growth in her. From this night, she'd done a year with UNIT. She wasn't really part of UNIT. You never saw her salute or wear a uniform or do what she was told by anybody. But she started out, somebody didn't know anything about space and all that kind of thing, which a lot of the companions now know a lot more. Back then, whoever thought of things like an ordinary person, girl, who, I've written a short story about her life before she became Joe, and that's why she wasn't very good at science, but she didn't go to school till she was 8. Um, she was like the hippie kid in Africa, living in tents and things like that. Anyway, you watch that, and the doctor's first reaction to her and everything. And slowly they became this incredible team. And you watched her grow up right to the point that she suddenly went, right, this is what this is all about. And she meets Cliff, who also doesn't like her to begin with. In terms of she's irritating and he calls her a silly goat and things like that. Anyway, and so she has the same meeting with Cliff as she had with the doctor, and then these incredible relationships. So you see this little 19-year-old suddenly going off and getting married and going off to save the planet and so on and so forth. Then cut forward, I come back from Australia, and Russell T Davies, we've got the Sarah Jane Adventures, where we see that Joe now has 13 grandchildren, 7 children. I don't know what that woman was doing up the Amazon, but she was busy. Sorry. um, anyway, so it was incredible. So you see her become a granny. And then on audio, we went ahead and Stuart Bevan actually went on his awfully big adventure in the middle of me writing a story, funnily enough, about which for Penguin, called Velvet Hugs, which involved him. And then we decided that it would be lovely to do on Big Finish what happened and how Cliff died rescuing these people. So she now has great grandchildren. And also on one of the box sets, we did a thing where Joe is saving baby sea devils, very Joe. And, you see that her husband at that point is gone. So you've seen her go from this gutsy, because she was a brave little soul.
Yeah.
People say, oh, she was ditzy. No, she was quirky. That's very different, because anybody who learns like she did and is prepared to as she puts her life on the line for the doctor and says to Azal, I think it was, no, take me, not him. She was prepared to die for her doctor. I don't know how many other companions have actually stood there and said, no, it's fine. Kill me. Sacrifice me.
No, Joe is incredible. It's like Joe is such a different character for, both of the time, but also for Doctor Who as a whole. She was absolutely incredible. So what drew you to the project in the first place? You know, what made you want to sign on for Doctor Who when you saw the script?
Oh, darling, you've got to go back a lot of time. You see, all you lovely young people. I mean, I'm 80 this year. So all you gorgeous little youngsters don't realize that back then you didn't have, yes, I was on the newspapers and, but we had no computers, we had no social media. I was, newspapers, every magazine, and so on. But I didn't know. I was in the middle of doing another television series. They'd already seen 500 girls and shortlisted it to 3. But Barry Letts said, I don't know. I just have this feeling. I want to see the one that can't come to the audition. And Richard Franklin was reading with the prospective companions, but not with me. I got there. I got lost in the TV centre. I had a dreadful cough. I was in the middle of doing this very, very heavy series called Man at the Top, which was really groundbreaking television, right? And anyway, I went along. Because I'm so myopic, they handed me a script and I kind of went like that. And they went, okay, could you do an improvisation? So I did an improv for them about seeing a hat stand with a hat that turned into the devil and did all that. That was easy because you don't need to see. Because the great thing about not seeing well like me is that anything in your imagination can become very, very real because you're not seeing what's really there, like cameramen and things like that. Anyway, the next day, I'd only seen, also you have to bear in mind my age. I was like, I spent nearly 2 years in hospital. So up till the age of about sort of 16. Prior to that, I think I'd seen, I wasn't an age where I was sitting on a Saturday night watching TV. And I was about 17 when I had the car accident. I wasn't sitting at home. I was working. I was out. I love my music. I was at concerts. But I did see a couple of episodes. And I went, wow, now that is a really, really far out, groovy.
That's different.
Yeah, that is something, right? But then life goes on. And then after that, having spent 2 years in hospital, you don't see TV. You might do these days, but back then, darling, no. Life is very different now. Very different, but the same. Anyway, that's another conversation. So that was why I wasn't this sort of, most of the girls that followed me had watched Doctor Who when they were young. So when I do Behind the Sofa, I'm seeing it all for the first time. So I get so gripped behind the sofa because it's like, I've never seen it before. So I became the child that everybody else was watching Doctor Who that I wasn't. I became the new Who child. That became my childhood. Yeah. And suddenly I'm going, yes, and I'm loving it. Because, the past is the past. You can't keep, And the great thing about Doctor Who, everything we did was the footprint that you have to this day. And as long as we have the TARDIS, a doctor, we're okay. If we ever lose those, we're in trouble. Except the Land Between the War and the Sea, which was blooming brilliant. And so
I was going to ask about that. You loved that, didn't you?
Oh, well, I love them all, but I do a thing called a reaction, which is not a review, because I have this feeling. If you start, spoilers and all that, you have things planted in your head before you see it. So you're not seeing it through the eyes of, I guess, the innocence of a child. You don't know what's going to happen. And at the end, if your cup of tea's gone cold and you just go, yes, that is your initial true reaction. After that, people start saying, oh, I didn't like that bit and I didn't like that bit and da-da-da. For me, what was my initial reaction? Yes, I just sat here and I got a cold cup of tea and I've been thoroughly. But the War Between the Land and Sea didn't actually have a doctor in it. And why am I looking around to see if anybody's hearing me? I'm going secret. I didn't miss having a doctor.
It was different, right? And it worked.
Oh, it was wonderful. Because, I've just looked back at some poetry that my son wrote about the year in 200 years' time and so on and so forth. My children and I've got twins and they're now, 47? But back when they were like 10 or 11, we were doing all sorts of things about this planet because we lived right on the sea in Sydney and we could see already, what was happening. That's, that's going back to, I'm not very good with dates, but 1987 or I can't, no, I'm not good with dates. I can't even add up dates. But let's put it this way. My kids were 11. And we made documentary, and he's written this wonderful poem, which is all to do with, it's so brilliant. I'm actually going to put it up on Twitter because it's so good. But it's saying things about, in 200 years, we may have cars with batteries that will start, and all that kind of thing. This has always been part of my life. So when I saw The Land Between and doing The Green Death, and indeed The Terror of the Autons, we had underlying things back then that you don't have to see. It's like Doctor Who should always have subtle things going underneath, but never lose the adventure. And, The Terror of the Autons was dealing with plastics and the problems of plastics. And then so suddenly to see this brilliant, well done Pete McTighe and everybody involved, just when all that rubbish came over, I was so excited. I can't begin to tell you. Because
it was incredible, wasn't it? And you were part of the original Sea Devil story as well, and they did a refreshed version of that to coincide. That was amazing as well.
And we'll also, as I say, Pete McTighe a few years ago wrote the little short that I did on the, we do those box set things, and there's always a little film. And Pete McTighe was right some time. I've done 3 now, but this one was Joe saving baby sea devils. I've actually got one. And they, you're in this cave and this little face comes out of this little egg. And, honestly, my little heart, I really felt it. I felt it so strong. Cute. It's so Joe too, isn't it? Secretly saving babies because the sea was so polluted that they weren't surviving in the water.
Yeah. Would you say that a role like Joe is sort of your favorite type of character to take on? Sort of these more, very standing on business type characters.
Oh, darling, no, I'm an actor. I've done a play where I play 9 characters, which was a true story about Betty Davis, that even had the letter from Betty at the end where she goes and completely takes over this family. I play all 9 characters, including the 4-year-old, on stage. I wrote a play, which you can get on Spotify, and it's called Not a Well Woman, which I did on stage in America, which I wrote myself with 26 characters. I'm a multi-voicer. And if back in the old days on audio for Big Finish, I used to have to do the doctor and all sorts of things. I've played Ice Warrior Queens. I've done everything. I'm not, I've done everything. I played mass murderesses. I've had my own chat show in Australia where I've spoken to Lenny Henry and I've had all those kind of guests and Simon Pegg. And I also did an arts and crafts show that used to go out on the BBC on Sunday afternoon where I was teaching people how to work with tie-dye and work with epoxy resin. And so there is no such thing for me as a character. Otherwise, I don't know why I'd act.
Yeah.
And Joe was
a really good point.
People like to think I'm like Joe. And obviously there's certain things about, but I can't be Joe. But when I'm playing Joe, I am totally Joe. I know how the woman breathes. I know how she thinks. I know how she feels. And she is somebody I absolutely adore. So writing the stories now that I have, one's called Velvet Hugs, and the latest one is called Take Their Breath Away, which was written after she leaves the doctor. I really know all about Joe's life. I know right from the day she came on into the world. I know all about her family, the way she grew up. And that's how you approach most characters when you work with them. And as I say, I even had to lift my voice. So if ever I play Joe Grant now, people say, oh, could you do a voice? And I have to stand so high on my tippy toes because, it's exhausting reaching that pitch that I had to reach back then. And I remember when we were filming, John used to say sometimes, he said, we'll have to go again. She just turned into the old lorry driver. No offense to lorry drivers. I just couldn't think of another way of terming it. But, you know, I've got
Oh,
very.
oh no, Jon Pertwee was so funny as well. You know, I've heard so many stories about what a character he was.
Yes, from people who I worked with him. We were together every day. We ate lunch together every day. We traveled to every location. We loved each other's company. It was also a very close team when, you know, dear Roger and Nicholas and, you know, everybody else was in it. But John, obviously, and I spent more time without Unit. Um, and I even went on holiday with the family to Ibiza. So when you have that kind of a relationship that works as well off stage as it does on stage, I think that shows, and I think it's clear to most fans today what a connection this whole team and that John and I had, very especially. And then Liz, who, you know, absolutely darling Liz, when she took over, it was hard for her with John because he was used to me. But she absolutely found the perfect person with Tom. And they had the similar sort of relationship to John and I. And John was wonderful. And when he was feisty or, you know, I was always calling because I'm very good at, like, you know, saying it's right, darling. And he looked after me. I mean, absolutely. He was wonderful. And I was very lucky because I was at the BBC, and I talk about this because it was probably a very short time, but I was treated absolutely equally. You know, if there was problems on, you know, with scripts, I was in on those discussions. I was never treated like, but then I grew up not knowing that as a woman, I couldn't do anything because I had that kind of upbringing. You know, when my father campaigned for women, he, you know, way back in the 60s and campaigned for, you know, gay rights and so on. So I grew up thinking I could, you know, do anything.
Yeah, thinking this is the way that
I
it
can
is. Well,
even
actually,
do
you know,
plumbing.
yeah, evidently. So I mean, you know, you grew up, you know, you sort of went into a very different industry to what we have now. But for students, do you have any advice of, you know, if they want to act, how should they break into it?
Do you know, one is asked this question so often, and there is no absolute answer. You'll get a different answer from most actors. You know, nothing's right, nothing's wrong. I didn't walk around saying, I'm going to be an actress. I grew up with very, very famous people. I saw the other side of showbiz, the real Hollywood fame, right? I grew up with that around me from the age of about 11. I also grew up in a family with very famous sporting people around me. So I've done both those things now. I didn't really know I wanted to act, but apparently everybody else did. Because because I can't see very well, my ears are my eyes. So I've always played with, it sounds so weird, but this as an actor is your instrument. And you've got to find out what that instrument can do. You know, it's no point and back then even more so because we all did lots of voices. Whereas now they'll get somebody who's from there or from here, or, you know, somebody who's 6 as opposed to me coming in doing a 6-year-old, you know, that sort of thing. So all that's changed, you know, and I'm not quite sure now how. All I can say, the advice is you have to be absolutely determined and passionate and accept you may not get a job. You will go for interviews and you will go away feeling like you have nothing to offer. And now you have to do all those, what do they call it? Self tapes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. Okay, that's fine. But I don't quite understand how that works because they actually now say you need the right lighting. You've got to turn your room into an airport lounge. I mean, can't
An
you see?
amazing microphone.
Can't you see that we can act? If you give me few words, I'll show you what. But I understand that's how it goes. It started in COVID and it hasn't stopped. I get all that. Thank goodness I'm the age I'm at now. Oh, oh, could you nip down to Tesco's and see if you can get a Tesco's overall so we can see what you'd look like as a Tesco woman? No. Sorry. Now you get the grumpy old girl. Anyway, but that's how it is. And so you have to get that right now. And you have to really understand. And of course, you lot are coming. I don't mean that disrespectfully. You're all coming into the world. You know all this stuff. My kids, my kids had some time without computers, but once, it's that world now. But I also say, I had the world when we didn't have all that. Like in Doctor Who, when people would be up all night trying to work out different ways of doing things. So we used an awful lot of that. And I still do that. And I often get better results than if I start, if I want something done and I send an email, it'll take forever, back and forth. And I pick up a phone, I go, hello, darling. I'm still able to cross over how to fix things, how to do things without all the right machinery. But I'm also very much into what's happening now. So back to your question. I think what you also have to remember, back in my day, if you were, no play, no pay sort of thing. I was in the West End for 3 years. If you were late for the half, which is the actor's beginning where they go and get dressed and ready to go on stage, more than twice, you were fined.
Oh.
I have worked in so many plays and things like that where I have gone on stage. I got my nose broken in one play, and I carried on right to the end with tears streaming down my face. And it had been broken so many times in the car accident that I'm a bit like a boxer now. And I got shot by a blank on my inner thigh on stage. You carry on. When my babies were born and really ill, I was sleeping in the hospital and going on stage in the West End at night. It's that kind of commitment to your work, because I knew nothing could happen. I had to work to support my children. But a lot of people say, oh, I couldn't have done that. I had to do that. I was a single mother. I had 2 children that were being looked after in the hospital, and I was sleeping there every night with them. My father died 20 minutes before I went on stage. He would have killed me if I hadn't gone on.
Wow.
He would have, get your sorry bottom out there, woman. And then you once it's like blanking your canvas before you go into work. Then when you come out, you pick up all the stuff that's going on in your life, and you then start taking care of it. Now, this is how I came into it all. This is how it was then. People could fire you on the spot, and I was in a play in London, and they fired one of the characters after a week of rehearsals.
It's just crazy to think about now.
I got my first job I had about 3 lines as a French au pair girl, because one of my skills is I speak French, and a smattering of Latin, very useful, but you wouldn't do that now. I did it, way back. Anyway, but after a few days, I was taken out of that role. They fired the young boy playing the son, and I was put into the Juve lead and consequently did 2 episodes. But it was awful because the guy who was taking over from the boy was sitting in rehearsals and nobody knew why. None of that would happen these days.
Yeah. No, it is totally different, isn't it?
And so, but most of all, what I'm trying to say is you've really got to want it, because people are going to say, oh, you're too tall, you're too short, your nose is too big, you're this, D. Although they probably don't these days. But, you're going to get used to rejection. And if you can't handle rejection and you're going to take it so personally, you're not going to get very far. You're going to be constantly, because it's a nerve-wracking job. You go out there, you give everything you've got, and the audiences may absolutely love it. And then you read the review the next day.
Yeah, no, you're right, because, absolutely. And I think as well, something you pointed out earlier as well is, I think, you mentioned the power of the voice as well. That's so prevalent even today. And, especially if we scale it back to, Doctor Who, for example, they don't even need visuals for half the stories. The audio dramas are there.
Absolutely. And those audios, you know, as I say, I mean, when last year I played the Ice Warrior Queen. And fans go, oh my God, was that you? And I was in Dracula playing a nun and a barmaid, you know, I love voicing. I've done a lot of multi-voicing. And for Paul Mars books, I did 50 during COVID and things like that. But I always say to actors, you know, find out what this is, because if you played an instrument, you'd think of all, you know, you've got jazz, you've got rock, you've got all of this. You'd learn how to do everything, wouldn't you? And I think it's important. And it's great, you know, because this is what you use. And also, I think it's really important to say, okay, I can dance a little, I can sing a little, I can, you know, I mean, if you heard me sing, you'd really wish you hadn't, but I can sing in voices belonging to animals or children. But I can't. But you need to be able to, you know, just keep working with everything you can, because you don't now, when I was at drama school, we did all the technical stuff as well. Now it's a separate course, but I knew how to direct, light, etc., etc., etc. So when I did start directing at the Opera House and places like that in Australia, I knew how to light. I knew how to do all that, whereas most actors now would possibly struggle with it. And I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but, you know, also we had to do all our own makeup, all our own hair for all of the different eras. And that's really useful. And so if I was coming into the business now, I'd want to learn all that stuff as well. I wouldn't want to just like say, I'm an actor. I want to know. When I was doing Doctor Who, I was in with all the people making all the masks, and I was when they were editing, and because I wanted to learn everything about the job I was doing, so that you then understand what the producer's job, what the, you know, everybody's job, makeup, wardrobe, special effects. I think it's, you know, and even when I work in television now, I'm right there. I'm fascinated by absolutely everything. And I think you should never narrow yourself down to just saying, oh, I want to be an actor, and never say I want to be a star.
No,
Yes,
absolutely.
Thank your lucky stars that you're working. Or, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about having that versatility. So, you know, I know you're limited on time, so I'll ask you one big last question. I know you've spoken online a little bit about it, but I do want to know your ultimate verdict. The end of the reality war, we saw Billy Piper. Do you think that is Rose Tyler, or do you think that is the Doctor? Who do you think we saw?
I don't think at all. Why would I
Okay.
spoil the surprise by sitting there with my brain? I just have a feeling, because it was fairly short notice, I just have a feeling that was a real grabber. But I don't think about it. I'm not interested until I sit there. They've never let me down so far. Obviously, there are some things to other things, but they've never let me down with the Doctor before. I've loved all the companions right from the very start to now. I trust them implicitly to give me something. I'm going to go, yes. And if you think about it, you know, it's pointless.
We just have to wait and see. You know, that's what the excitement's for, and that's what we're going to see at Christmas. You know, I'm so excited myself. I can't wait.
I do understand their excitement and their wanting to guess, but I'm not that. I'm one of those that say, go on, surprise me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, it is exciting. And yeah, I really can't wait to see what they do. But yes, Katy, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I apologize to anybody that is including you, for this incredible speediness that I have going today. But, you know, I'm absolutely up to here with stuff. You are just an absolute darling. Thank you so much, because I didn't know what to expect. And you are an absolute dream to talk with. I know I'm a bit of a nightmare.
Thank you.
Done my best for you.
Katy, you've been an absolute, honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. It's been amazing.
And it's lovely to meet you. And thank you so much. And remember,
Absolutely.
any opinions I've given you in this, I always say this to people: opinions are not facts. They are just that. My opinion. And if you have an opinion, try and put it across nicely. I'm just saying that for anybody in Doctor Who wants to say something negative like they did a bit last year. Be constructive.
True. There's a lot of talk, isn't there? But yes, thank you so much, and thank you everyone at home for watching. I'll see you next time.